The Anna Kepner case keeps getting worse and worse the more information that gets released to the public. I am sick to my stomach. I'm going to give everybody an update on this horrible and tragic case that still has not resulted in an arrest yet. Keep in mind, it is Friday, November 28th, and it's very, very early in the morning, so anything could happen, but as of right now, still no arrest. Again, I'm going to break down the latest in this case for you from my in-laws' house, hence the blurred background and the AirPods. So please forgive me for any visual or audio changes today. I'm Lauren Conlon from LA Magazine. This is your daily pop culture, scandals, and crime news. All right, so where we last left off, Anna Kepner, a beautiful 18-year-old girl from Florida. She went on vacation with her family, her dad, her stepmom, and her siblings, or some of her siblings, and her 16-year-old stepbrother. And it was a Carnival cruise ship, and she was sharing a stateroom with her 14-year-old biological brother and also her 16-year-old stepbrother. Now, Anna one night said she didn't feel good. She went back to her room, and per her grandma recently, and we're going to watch part of this interview in a minute, per her grandma, she came back out of the room for just a bit. And then she eventually, returned to bed. And this is most likely this time that she returned is when she was killed, because her 14-year-old brother said when he returned to the room that night, maybe 11 p.m. or so, he thought Anna wasn't there. But little did he know she was actually under the bed where she had been sleeping, and she was covered or wrapped in a blanket and then covered in life vests. And so the stateroom setup, she had, it looked like a full bed kind of in the middle of the room, and the 14-year-old brother and the 16-year-old stepbrother shared two bunk beds. So, the 14-year-old brother thought that she just went out. She went back out. He didn't think of anything. And I cannot imagine now, knowing what happened to her, how he must feel knowing that he had to sleep next to her body. But what we've learned thus far is that her cause of death was asphyxia. And it was asphyxia by a bar hold, which is an arm over the neck. I also disclosed on the last video that her 16-year-old stepbrother was deemed a person of interest or a suspect by the FBI and law enforcement. And we only know this because of a court filing that came from his mother, who was Anna's stepmother, and his father, her ex-husband. This is Shauna, now Kepner. I'm going to go through actually Anna's family tree in a second. Actually, you know what? I'll do that right after I play this clip, because I think it will kind of help this little family tree that I made, because it's very, very confusing, her family dynamic. So I'm going to play this 3-minute clip from Fox Now, or live from Fox Now. If you know me, you know I sort of talk over these a bit just to sort of avoid the copyright issues. But man, I am so angry and just so heartbroken over this case. And I'm sure you guys are too. And if you're not familiar with it, you will see why. So let me play this really quickly.
To follow as a stepbrother is now front and center in the death investigation of an 18-year-old high school student who died on a Carnival cruise ship. Let's be joined right now by Madison Scarpino in Atlanta with the latest on this mystery. What more can you tell us? What's the next step in this process?
I'm going to speed this up, actually.
Hey, Mac. Well, yeah, the 16-year-old stepbrother was sharing a cruise cabin with the victim, Anna Kepner, and that's also where her body was found. Well, in an interview with ABC News, Anna's grandparents say that the FBI told them she died from asphyxiation. And the grandparents, who were also on the family cruise, say the FBI is exploring the possibility it was caused by a so-called bar hold, which is a type of chokehold with an arm around the neck. But investigators and the medical examiner are staying quiet right now. ABC asked the grandparents if they think the stepbrother had anything to do with Anna's death, and here's what they say.
I mean, he was in a room with her. He was the only one seen coming and going. So I can't accuse him because I don't know what happened in that room. But the summation would be that he did something.
The grandmother also saying
Oh,
the stepson told her he did not
so
remember what
pretty.
happened the night of Anna's death. And she also says that he was a, quote, emotional mess while interviewing with the FBI. We learned through a court motion filed last week in the stepmom's custody case that her teen son is considered to be a suspect in Anna's death, and he could soon be facing charges. Now, this all comes after a housekeeper discovered the cheerleader's lifeless body shoved under a bed in the cabin earlier this month, reportedly wrapped in a blanket and covered by life jackets.
Cruise ships are loaded with cameras. They have cameras everywhere. We may not have cameras in the room, but we're going to know at the time of death. We're going to know who was with her at the death.
And we have reached out to the attorneys for both Anna's stepmother and her father and are waiting to hear back. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much. And obviously, one of the main questions that I think about is just jurisdiction, because this cruise ship is traveling through different waters, to different ports. Can you give us some insight into that? Who has potential authority if there are charges brought or anything happens?
The FBI.
So because, as you mentioned, this did happen supposedly on international waters during that Carnival cruise ship, it would be the FBI handling this investigation. And since all the signs are pointing towards the 16-year-old being the suspect, the fact that he's a minor probably is playing into the fact that we still have not seen any charges yet, if he is in fact charged with this crime.
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of potentially finger pointing out there for this. What is Carnival Cruise saying about this? Have we heard any statements? Are they being cooperative with authorities?
So Carnival Cruise, in the beginning, when this happened, they told us that they are fully cooperating with the Miami office of the FBI. As I mentioned, they are the ones handling the investigation, and they seem to kind of point all the questions back towards the FBI. But they are acknowledging that this happened on one of their ships.
All right, very good. Obviously, we're going to keep our...
Okay. Let me just take this down. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pull up at the moment, since I have this screen share, the family tree that I made. And this is not a crazy, detailed family tree, but there is a lot going on with Anna's family life. So as you heard, her stepbrother is a person of interest. And according to the grandmother, he was a mess when he was interviewed by the FBI. Also, in a longer interview with her grandmother, they said that, the medical examiner's office allegedly told Anna's family when they got her body, it was in perfect condition. So that also does match with, the cause of death being strangulation. And clearly the manner of death would be a homicide if she was strangled. But the reason the housekeeper discovered her body is because at a certain point in the morning, they did panic when they did not hear from her and they thought she didn't come home. So back to this family tree, the center, let me see if I can make it bigger. That's her father, Christopher Kepner. And right here to the right is Shauna Kepner, or formerly Hudson. And that's Christopher Kepner's current wife, Anna's stepmom. She has an 18-year-old child with Thomas Hudson. And then the 16-year-old son, who is the suspect in the case. And then a minor child born in 2016, who would be 9 years old. That's Shauna Kepner and her family. Those were Anna's current step siblings. Now, Christopher Kepner, he also had another ex-wife. This is his second wife, Tabitha, and they had two siblings together. They had two children together. One was born in 2011. The other was in 2016. The one born in 2011 is the 14-year-old that was on the trip with them. So these are technically Anna's half siblings, but clearly biological siblings. And then we have Christopher Kepner's first wife and Anna's mother, Heather Wright. And if you saw my last video, Heather was talking to Inside Edition about not being allowed at Anna's funeral. She's had some problems with drugs and, has been in and out of prison. And it was crazy. She was on Inside Edition and she's like, well, I can't go, but I'm going to disguise myself and go. I was just like, what? Why are you saying this on national TV? But whatever. So that is the family tree. Also, Anna's father has gotten into some trouble in the past that involved his second wife, allegedly. They got together apparently before she was of age. So there's that. And, I just want to say something about this. I know it's hard not to pass judgment when you hear all these things. I mean, again, in my last video, I did talk about Anna's ex-boyfriend saying all these things that everybody knew that this stepbrother was obsessed with Anna. He carried a knife. Anna was always uncomfortable. At one point, the stepbrother saw this kid jump on her in a sexual way. And apparently, this ex-boyfriend said he told Anna's parents. And not only was nothing done, but they had to share a room on a cruise. And this is not me judging. I'm just telling you guys the facts here. But I think, again, I've seen on the internet, I mean, people are just going crazy, really coming down on the parents. And of course, you see what you read and you're like, this is horrible. And then you see some of the court documents and you're like, this is very, very horrible. But they also just lost a child and they're grieving. And so I think, I do feel so bad because we live in a world where a family will experience a tragedy and all of a sudden, they're in the spotlight and they're getting hate from everywhere, all sides. And look, I'm not saying that in certain cases it's not deserving. It's just such an odd world we live in that this is what happens. I mean, again, there's clearly a lot of issues within the family, but I am not a part of that dynamic. And it's easy to sit there and judge when you're not in the situation. But again, I'm not saying anything that her family is responsible or not. I just, there's a couple things that are tough, but I'm not judging. I'm really not. I don't know enough. A couple other updates. So Anna's stepmother had filed a motion to plead the fifth in an upcoming custody hearing with her ex, Thomas, because she didn't want to possibly implicate the 16-year-old in any way. Sorry, my foot's asleep now. I'm in such a weird position. Sorry. I can't wait to go home and be in my own area. But no, she didn't want to implicate her 16-year-old in any way. But a judge ruled against that and said, nope, you're not going to be able to plead the fifth. We're not delaying this. Sorry. And this is rough for her because her ex-husband, filed a petition basically saying that she's allowing the kids to run rampant, including the 16-year-old. They've had no discipline. They're out of control and they need to be with me. This is her ex. Also, Anna's father recently came out and kind of said, he's not denying that the 16-year-old could have done this, but he's not coming out right and saying, he did it. He's clearly in a position where he's trying to play middleman, I guess. It's his wife's son, but also like, dude, this is your daughter. He said that his 16-year-old stepson always seemed like a normal kid. He remains in shock over his daughter's killing. And he said to People magazine, I want him to face the consequences. I will be fighting to make sure that does happen. I do not stand behind what my stepson has done. I cannot say he is responsible, but I can't decline. That is such a confusing statement to make. I get that he's trying to be diplomatic here, but it sounds like he is aware of all the facts and that an arrest is imminent. So guys, thanks so much for listening and dealing with the funny sound and background. But anyway, this is a horrible case. I am not making light of anything. This is how my face looks. But justice for Anna. And I'll be back on Monday with more pop culture scandals, and crime news. I'm Lauren Conlin from LA Magazine.